Hey guys, Chris here from Carolot Farm. Today is the day that I'm going to be preparing a new green bean bed. I am trying to decide though where I want my green beans. We have several beds behind me where we had crops that we've since pulled. We had broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbages. And I'm just trying to figure out exactly where I want my next round of summer green beans to go. My first round of summer beans I have put right here in this little silver planter, and they've done really well. I have another planter right here that we have pulled up. It had previously been around, I believe, cabbages. So I think I'm going to do something very similar to this here, but I just have to figure out the best place and then start working on the soil. I'm not going to lie, it's really hot today, and I'm probably going to try to figure out which of these beds has the best soil to work with and start there and make my life a little bit easier because it is, again, so hot and humid today. I have decided that I am going to put my next green bean bed right here directly beside the center aisleway. And so first thing I want to do is pull up the old cardboard that was previously on a pathway, and then I'll start weeding and turning the soil. I've got my red discard bucket down there though, because there's going to be a lot of weeding to do. Now that I have removed the old cardboard that was already over in those beds, I have my rake here, and I'm going to rake up as much as I can that might already be loose. I also see, there are remnants of the previous plants that were there, and so I'll see what I can get with the rake, and then I'll pull some, and then you can see I have my green tiller, my little hand tiller over there. I do want to till the soil a bit, and then we'll see how long this all takes. Because it's really hot today, I'll probably do this in stages. I might get the ground prepared now and then come back this evening and actually put the beans in the ground and lay the planter. So we'll see how much I get done. With green beans, you can plant them multiple times throughout the growing season. Some people plant them as close together as every 2 weeks, and then you really are just constantly, picking and producing beans all summer long. Because I have a lot of other things going on in the garden, such as tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, okra. I know we're going to be really busy with other canning and pickling products, and so with the beans, I didn't want to get overworked with picking and processing. So that being said, my beans here went into the ground, I want to say probably in May. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to go back and look. But it's now approaching the middle of July, and so the next wave of green beans will be, several weeks behind these, which gives me a little time to work and focus on other crops. But you certainly could have planted this next round of beans a lot sooner, and depending on the space in the garden and how much time we have, we might even put a third round of beans in, maybe approaching the early part of August, and that should give us a fall crop. So green beans are great because they're pretty fast and they're pretty easy. Once your beans are ready to harvest, though, you do want to be prepared to pick them regularly. Otherwise, your beans get really big and tough, and they're just not near as tender and delicious. So I don't ever want to have more beans than I know I can really manage, which is why I just have these 2 crops pretty well spaced out this year. This is a look at the cardboard that I removed from the paths. It's beginning to, break down as cardboard should, but I want to show you, what a good job it did at deterring the weeds. This right here is a very nice weed-free path where the cardboard sat. So it's a fantastic weed barrier. I'm a huge fan of cardboard, if you didn't know that. We have it on all sorts of pathways around the garden. But if you're looking for a weed barrier and you haven't tried cardboard, I'd recommend giving it a try. As I work to weed part of the bed here, I'm using my left hand. And I'm not left-handed, but that is because I am beginning to get either carpal tunnel or just general tendonitis in my wrist. And the only repetitive work I tend to do is picking the paddocks for the horses and weeding in the garden. So I'm going to see if I can't become a little more ambidextrous this summer. I have just now finished kind of weeding this oversized bed here for my green beans. Because that silver planter I plan to use is quite long and oval shaped, I have a pretty large bed area behind me. Now that I've, again, pulled the grass and the weeds, I'm gonna take my hand tiller and really try to like turn up that soil so it's nice and soft. And I don't know if you can see, but we've got some thunder showers rolling in behind us. And so I might just get the ground tilled and then let it rest and see what the weather brings. I am finding that the soil is pretty well compacted, and it's just gonna use up a lot of my battery on my little handheld tiller over here. So I'm gonna take my shovel, I'm gonna turn this, and then I'll come back for a finishing till with my hand tiller. I'm working to turn the soil. I'm seeing a bunch of worms. That's a good sign. Healthy soil. I've just now finished hand tilling my bed here for my green beans, and I think I'm gonna step away now. I've been at it for, I bet, every bit of an hour, if not a little more. And because it is pretty hot and humid, I'm gonna head indoors, cool down, and if I don't get back to this today, I will kind of film the second part, because I think it's fun to see something like a project like this from start to finish. But again, I've got my first round of green beans behind me here. They're looking really good, so I've got high hopes for my new beans. But first, I do have to get them in the ground. So today is day 2 of preparing and planting my second round of green beans. I did run out of time the other day, which as a gardener happens more often than you might think, you know, between just being busy and overscheduling yourself, or projects taking longer than expected, to foul weather approaching. You know, it happens quite a bit. So again, like I told you, today is day 2. I'm heading back into the garden. We have our silver planter in place. The ground is in really good shape, and so now really all we have to do is put those green beans in and then give them some water. So shouldn't take too long. My favorite variety of green beans to plant have been the Blue Lake bush beans. I like that they are pretty consistent. I can rely upon them coming up and doing well here in our climate. And they're also very accessible. So if I need to overseed, I can find them at most garden stores, you know, even Lowe's, Walmart, our local, you know, co-op, farm and garden shops. They all tend to have a variety of Blue Lake. And so I've just found that really helpful. Once I have the soil all prepared, I like to lay out my beans or my seeds so that I can visually see the spacing, and then I go back and press them into the soil and then cover them very gently. One of the last things I like to do is kind of go back and crumble up some of these clumps of dirt, and that helps to put a finer layer on top of the newly planted seeds. So there you have it. It's a little better looking there. Another gardening tip would be to always have a container for rocks handy. If your garden is like ours, every time it rains, every time you till, turn the soil, work it, you find more rocks. They just have a way of continuously coming up. So we like to have a container that has a little drainage in the bottom. It's an old flower pot, and that way they don't become filled with water and, you know, harbor mosquitoes and all. So that's something that we always have handy. Another thing we like to have on hand here in the garden this time of year is our bug container. We have been using for many years now just an old laundry detergent container with a good lid. It has a little bit of water inside, so it's kind of soapy water. And we use that for all sorts of bugs that we find, primarily squash bugs. I've heard it's not good to squish them, that it actually attracts more bugs. I don't know if that's true or not, but you know, as we pick squash bugs off our squash, zucchini, pumpkins, and cucumbers, we try to put them in here as opposed to squishing them. After planting the seeds, the next step is going to be to water everything very thoroughly. I prefer to use a watering can for this kind of first initial water, certainly for the first few days until the seeds have germinated and the plants are a little more substantial. So here, you know, again, just want to give everything a really good water. Something I will note, in this particular bed today, I planted a little over 2 packs of seeds. I had 2 unopened packages and a package that maybe had 1/3 to 1/2 in it. So I started with the open package, and you know, I have, again, maybe 1/3 to 1/2 of a pack left over, and I will use those to overseed if I see there are, you know, spots that are needing that in a few weeks. So we'll see. You know, the beans that I planted earlier in the year in a same size planter with about that number of seeds is doing really well, but I did have to overseed it a little. So I'll keep you posted on how these do. But again, I put let's say 2 packs of seeds in this large silver bed today. Here is a look at that other bed of green beans that I planted earlier in the year. Like I told you, I started off with 2 packs of seeds, and then I did have to overseed it. Some of them did not come up, but the bed looks great. We have blooms, and I do need to get in there soon and start looking for beans because they have a way of hiding deep down under all of that foliage. Sometimes you don't even realize that you have clusters of beans. So one day this week I'll need to pull the netting off and see what we have inside. Thank you so much for joining me today here in the garden. I'm really happy we got these green beans finished up. Not only are they in the ground, they've been watered, and so now it's a matter of keeping the ground moist for the next few days to allow those seeds the best chance to really germinate. And then they should be pretty sturdy and ready to kind of fly on their own. I find green beans to be one of the hardier crops, easier crops, as long as you don't have a critter that comes and eats them. So this year we've done a really good job fortifying everything. We've covered our beans with deer netting, and we'll do the same here with this planter. Once we see signs of those beans popping up, I'll go ahead and start to cover them. So again, thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this little green bean adventure, and we hope you check back soon because there's always something to do in the garden. Bye guys.